Equifax Canada says credit demand was high in the first quarter of the year. The agency's latest consumer credit report finds that consumers are spending 21.5% more on average each month on their credit cards compared with pre-pandemic levels. It says the higher cost of living and the influx of new credit customers have made credit card balances rise by 14.5% year over year. Equifax says the first quarter normally brings a drop in non-mortgage debt as consumer spending slows after the holidays. But this year, credit card balances continued to rise. Well, joining us now to discuss the agency's consumer credit report for the first quarter is Ms. Rebecca Oakes, Vice President of Advanced Analytics with Equifax Canada. Ms. Oakes, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me.
So from the sounds of it, consumers are spending more of what they don't have. Credit card debt is at an all-time high, $100 billion. And according to your report, there was a 19% rise in missed payments. Is this all purely because of the rising cost of living?
I mean, it's definitely a significant driver behind some of the movements that we're seeing. I mean, inflation levels are high. That links directly to spending because things just cost more in general. If you go to buy a new washing machine, it's going to cost more than it did a year or two ago. But however, that jump in spend isn't just what we're seeing. We're also seeing, as you mentioned, the credit active population increasing. Some of that's due to immigration, and some of that is just more consumers needing credit for their day-to-day lives. In Q1, we saw around 1 million more extra people becoming credit active compared to a year ago. So there's quite, a significant movement happening right now.
And is this increase consistent across all age demographics, or are some age cohorts maybe driving this increase?
Well, I mean, when we look at credit card balance in particular, that's definitely been higher for younger consumers and millennials than we've seen for some of the older population. We're also seeing the general overall average non-mortgage debts for those groups as well rising. I think it's worth bearing in mind that millennials in particular, where we're seeing some of that increase, this is kind of the most credit active period of their lives. Just naturally that age group tends to be more active. So some of it is just going to be linked to kind of the natural development of what you kind of do over your life.
Now, what's interesting is that Ontario and British Columbia were found to be the provinces with the highest non-mortgage delinquency rates. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, those two have definitely seen the biggest increase year on year. We do know that those provinces had some of the hottest housing markets, and they have seen increases in things like rental costs as well. So there is going to be more of an impact in terms of cost of living, and that might be pushing more people into financial difficulties. When we look at it at a product level, those provinces are also seeing kind of the averages increase more than the rest of Canada. So yeah, it's definitely something that's probably linked again to kind of those housing markets and this high cost of living.
So what is the significance of this increase in credit card spending, specifically in the post-pandemic period? What does it say about the state of our economy?
Well, firstly, I would say that increasing spend isn't necessarily a bad thing if payments are being maintained as well. And the good news is that payments are still much higher than we saw pre-pandemic. The less good news is that the overall rate of payment that has been reducing. So that's why we're seeing those credit card balances start to increase. Now, when you look at some of the economy-related numbers, we do believe there are pockets of financial stress where consumers are probably relying on credit a little bit more right now. And they may be getting into difficult water, but there is still a large chunk of that population that are spending and paying off their credit card as well. So for most, things are probably still manageable despite the high cost of living, but there are groups where there is some difficulties.
So are there any solutions that Equifax may be proposing for Canadians, for officials to potentially reduce delinquency rates?
I mean, it's a difficult one. We know interest rates are high right now, and that obviously is having a knock-on impact to lots of things. It's not a simple answer to just reduce interest rates because that unfortunately is going to add fuel to the fire when it comes to inflation. I think it's just a matter of time. We have to see how the current interest rates play out and hope that, spending reduces, inflation starts to come down, and things become a little bit more manageable for consumers.
We'll have to see for sure. Now, maybe looking towards the near future, what are Equifax's predictions for the coming months? Are we to expect maybe further financial strain on Canadians? Any relief in sight?
I mean, I think, unfortunately, the answer to that's going to be yes. We don't expect a shock in terms of a huge jump in delinquency levels or anything like that. We expect it to be much more gradual. We're starting to see more consumers with mortgages missing payments as well, likely linked to payment shocks from renewals. So, we think that will continue towards the end of the year. So we expect a gradual increase in missed payments rather than a kind of a big shock factor.
All right, Ms. Oakes, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thank you.